there is no me versus you in terms of which way is going to win. It's whatever's best for the customer and whatever works the best.
Have this peace in your mind, so no toxic environment at all, right?
And my approach instead is a little bit more, my employees are my customers.
Great. I love the energy.
If you caught the wrong size, bring it to Big Frog and we will swap it out for free.
Information or data that you are missing to make a better decision.
I have a very strict policy that's buy me a drink before you invite me to bed.
Okay, Christopher, thanks for being there. I want to go straight into it. Tell me what made you choose Big Frog specifically out of all the franchises and options available. What pulled you in? Tell me your story.
Yeah, great question. So my background is in retail management. I ran wireless stores for a fairly large wireless provider, and I completed my MBA thinking, okay, I want to do something for myself. Uh, at the same time, 7 years earlier, my dad had actually bought one of the same franchises, and it kind of checked all the boxes, or so I thought. I thought, okay, well, nobody sues over a T-shirt. There's no such thing as a T-shirt emergency. It should be a pretty easy life.
Right.
And so I went to the discovery time with the executives from the franchise group. Just got along really well with all of them. Of course, seeing my dad as the example, he had been having a good time with it, and little did I know there is such a thing as a T-shirt emergency. Uh, and sometimes people do take things pretty seriously when it comes to logos and copyrights and things like that. But ignorance is bliss, and I'm glad I didn't know all those things when I started. Um, but the thing that brings me the most joy in this is not what I knew going in. It's what I learned along the way, and that's that when a a foster mother calls and says, "How quickly can you print a shirt? Because we are going to the courthouse right now to adopt our foster son, and we want a T-shirt to celebrate that event. And we have a way to knock that out in 15 minutes." When people come in and say, "Hey, can you print something on a onesie because I'm about to tell my parents that they're about to be grandparents." We get to be a part of
Nice.
people's major life moments, and it is the most joyous part of my job.
Great answer. And how do you deal with this emergency prints? Could you please expand on it? How you navigate your tough periods, your seasonality, all the rushing stuff that going through.
Yes, yes. So we actually have a digital printer in the store. It's basically an inkjet printer with a garment die, which means the print itself takes 1 minute. The heat press is about 30 seconds, and then it's just the new color of the shirt, whatever the design is. So the process itself is very simple. What we advertise is a 24-hour turnaround. But as mentioned, there are T-shirt emergencies. There are, major life moments that come up. So the policy that I implemented is that if any member of my team agrees to do a print faster than the 24-hour turnaround, they are personally volunteering to be part of every aspect of that process. So they are doing the artwork, they are taking the payment, they are then walking over and printing the shirt, right? There's no delegation, there's no, well, the production team handles this. Everybody knows how to print a shirt with this printer. Um, and it just streamlines the whole process. And really, um, the hassle of that process is dwarfed by the level of impact that we make on that customer, and generally create a lifelong customer as a result.
Great. And I also I've read about this technology. This is the new acronym for me. The DTG is called, right? It's direct to garment. Yes, yes. And in comparison to DTF, it's requires more skill maybe and more the machine calibration, right? Uh,
It's very similar. It's very similar. The actual printing itself, um, the way I could differentiate the two is DTG is in the shirt, whereas DTF is on the shirt. So direct to film creates the transfer, which is then heat applied, and it sits on top of the shirt, and it feels a lot more familiar, like a screen print. Whereas with DTG, you can use a water-based dye with no white underbase, and then it's just the new color of the shirt. You cannot even feel the print. There's no sweat patch and nothing to crack or peel with time. So it's actually not only the fastest way, but it's also, in many cases, the highest quality.
Great. And is it hard to maintain the consistency while you're operating the machine?
The only thing that can really interfere with the consistency is if you don't use it regularly. The print heads are $3,800 on my printer, and if you do not use them, they will dry up, and that gets costly. So when people find themselves getting into trouble with direct to garment, it's because they have a screen print operation and they bought the DTG printer as kind of a layup, right? Like, just as a backup plan in case they can't do a screen print on an order, or it doesn't make sense to. Um, and in those cases, a lot of times the printer itself will go unused for a very long time. Whereas in my business, I built the core of my business around that printer. So we're using it regularly. We're keeping those nozzles flushed out, and we don't really run into any problems.
Great, great. And backing up to this topic of being a franchisee, what your due diligence look like before sign, before you bet your money,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what did you miss?
What did I miss? That is a great question. You know, the input to output ratio is solid. The one thing that when potential franchisees call me as an established owner, um, and say, what do I need to know? I will say, without a doubt, 100%, you are buying a job. You get to choose what your job is. For me personally, I love getting out in front of people. I go to 5 to 10 networking events a week. The most effective use of my time is going out and getting customers to go back to my store and work with a very capable team waiting for them to help them along the way. Um, and yeah, the due diligence. Obviously, we looked at uh, the money piece, what it was going to cost, what we should bring in. We looked at um, the demographics of the retail location. We looked, I mean, yeah, and then I went to the annual franchise convention with my dad as a guest because he was already an owner, and so I got to meet all the other franchise owners in the system and speak with them. And it was just a very welcoming, very supportive group. And that was the tiebreaker.
Nice. Love the energy. Love this entrepreneurial mindset. And this is it. This the world is built by this. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, the thing that I realized, a lot of times the entrepreneurial influencers out there will push a lifestyle, um, and that one kind of bugs me, right? Um, what they don't tell you is it's just easier to work 12 hours for yourself than it is 8 hours for somebody else, right? And so is your happiness going to go up? Yes. Is your workload going to go down? No.
For sure, for sure. And speaking about this, while you're operating the business, you're of course wearing a lot of hats. On a typical Tuesday, walk me through what you are actually doing. What functions covering in a single day?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I start my day at about 7 a.m. at a Chamber of Commerce meeting. I'm a member of four of them. Three of those are weekly events. Um, so I'm going to be going to one of those meetings, in a room full of anywhere from 50 to 150 business owners. We each give a 30-second commercial. And, the idea is, yeah, we want to sell to the group, but we also want to sell through the group. So it's important to be there consistently at these meetings so that when um, the need for your services arises in somebody else's peer group, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, go see Chris at Big Frog. He can help you." Um, After that, I go up to the shop and I I find out what the needs of the business are. You know, I typically start and end any period of time I'm in the store with, "What do you need from me?" Um, there's a mindset that says that I need to be director of first impressions and touching every single order um and my approach instead is a little bit more, my employees are my customers, and the customers that walk in, they're going to benefit from me being there, but that's because I'm giving my team what they need to help those customers. Um, I find, a lot of times I'm putting out fires or running errands. One of the policies I have with my team is any phone call, email, or in person communication that you're nervous about making, you can turn it over to me, no questions asked. I'm going to do it for you. After that, we're going to recap. We're going to talk about what role I played and how I approached the resolution. Um, about 3 months after I implemented that process, uh, I um, I stopped having to use it, except maybe 2 or 3 times a year, because my team was then capable of assuming that advocate role and solving problems, and they were not as nervous about doing that, anymore. And then, I do everything that involves the bank accounts. And uh, when um, when I started a business, the way I end my day, obviously asking my team what they need from me before I go, but I realized that I could have breakfast with my wife and daughters, or I could have dinner, and I picked dinner. So I start my day early, but I leave on time to make sure that I have that time with my wife and kids at the end of the day.
Great thoughts. Why dinner?
Uh, you know, I think that from a micro community standpoint, right? That's when people are ready to talk. When they're first waking up and getting ready, for the day, usually they don't really have anything on their mind except, leave me alone. We all have to be here, but we don't want to, you know? Whereas, at dinner, it may have been a good day, it may have been a bad day, but, typically there's something to talk about.
We also spoke on a previous session on how you manage your team and how you handle this responsibility on how each person should be responsible for each own area. Could you please expand more on this? How you build this system of shared responsibility?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, the number one thing is I approach grown-ups like grown-ups. I base accountability on outcomes rather than processes. If I say I want this end result completed, I'll say, here's how I think you should do it. If you have a better way, please let me know. Um, there is no me versus you in terms of which way is going to win. It's whatever's best for the customer and whatever works the best. And I empower my team to a great deal to make those decisions. Um, I tell them if I'm not in the store and they need to make a decision. This is something I learned from the first leader who promoted me into leadership. He says, make the decision, but know why you did it. And if you come to me and say, this is what I did and why I did, then the worst thing you'll ever hear from me is, hey, this is why I don't want you to do it again. And then you won't do it again. Right. Um, But that's how I create a room full of leaders instead of, bottlenecking the processes, which would force me to stay in the store, instead of going out and getting more people to come in.
Great. Yeah, you should own it. Yeah, it's mentality. And while operating the day, how do you think, what's the hardest hat to wear? What would be your most annoying thing?
Man, it's that thing that I told my team they can always put off to me,
Yeah.
right? when, when there's a customer who's upset, when there's a situation that, if we made a mistake or something like that, uh and I have to be the bearer of bad news, or I have to uh operate in a diplomatic position to restore the customer relationship or something like that. um I do it because it needs to be done, and because that kind of follow up is the right thing to provide for a customer. But at the same time, man, I hate it. you know, I'd much rather not have awkward conversations. Um, but um, we find that the other side of that discomfort is where a lot of success and a lot of growth happens. So when we look at discomfort, when we look at hardship, we say callous or chronic, right? If it's going to break you completely and you'll never be able to recover, lead to a chronic condition, yeah, find something else to do. But if the only thing on the other side of it is you build some calluses and get tougher, well, get tougher.
How many times a day do you have this delegation from your
Oh
employees?
man, so when I first implemented that policy, it was once or twice a day. Um, and and I made sure it was a constructive process for everybody involved, right? Um, and now it is, I mean, if it happens once a month, that's huge, if it happens twice a month, that might be a once a year recurrence.
Sounds like a great system, but it kind of sometimes stressful for you.
It's stressful, but I mean, stress comes and goes. At the end of the day, you go home, you kiss your wife, you hug your kids, and and it's all over.
And what would the bad day in the operations, how it looks like, actually?
Yeah, yeah. So the it's one of those cases where an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. If we for some reason did not set proper expectations and the customer's unsatisfied, if we didn't color match correctly, if we um sometimes we'll say, how soon do we need these shirts printed? And they'll say, my event is on the 15th. And what they didn't mention was, um on the 15th, they will have flown to Johannesburg, South Africa, and gotten a hotel and 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 been there for a couple days, and they're delivering a speech and they need the shirt for that, right? So then they'll call on the 9th and say, "Where's my shirt?" You know?
Oh
Um,
man.
so you learn along the way, like, to communicate very clearly, you know? And instead of, when do you need the shirt? It's when does this need to be completed, right? And that little difference can mean the difference between me driving 100 extra miles that day to keep a promise. And if it means keeping our promises and we lose a little money on the sale, we're going to preserve the relationship for next time, and we're going to keep the promise. Um, but yeah, a tough day in the office would be the result of poor communication and and the scrambling that follows to keep those promises.
Right. The proper expectation management is the right cure to just handle majority of the rushes.
Absolutely.
Okay. And while speaking of the system, Big Frog gives you the brand, the standards, some trainings, marketing support. Uh, where does this system genuinely helps you, and where it gets in the way?
I haven't had it get in the way. February 28th, we turned 8 years old, and I have not seen a case where they've gotten in the way just yet. Um, Now, I will say, and I tell everybody who's considering getting a Big Frog store, um, the franchise group will help you as much as you ask. And there are people who, they operate under the Big Frog name. They get their shirts at the negotiated rates from the main suppliers. We have the benefit of buying power because there are roughly 80 Big Frog stores. Um, we have a great point of sale and credit card processing and other arrangements that make things easy. But that's all they use. Is just, that they have the framework set up and they just operate. And then there are Big Frog owners who they sign their managers up for the weekly coaching, which is, part of what's offered. That they themselves have the weekly accountability calls with a business coach. And and they take full advantage of that. And it helps from a sense of insight, from accountability. Even as a business owner, if you know you're going to have to speak to the results once a week, there's something about that makes you want to perform at the next level. Um, but yeah, I haven't seen really any downside. If you are a pure business minded person and you naturally think of all the variables and you thrive on creating those structures, then maybe a franchise isn't for you. I would say for the rest of us, any perceived restrictiveness would be dwarfed by the amount of help you get.
Great thoughts. And in terms of the scalability, what are your plans, your ideas to grow, or you can focus more on the quality of the current store?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So I'm about 2/3 of my business is repeat and referral. I'm about 50% repeat and about 33 to 35% referral business. So the main initiatives for me obviously take really good care of the people who come in. And to that end, I'm a 5.0 on Google, right? Like we take good care of our customers.
So that,
Um,
yeah.
the other side of it is we go out and grow. I mentioned the 5 to 10 networking events a week that I go to, um, where I'm out making those connections, meeting people, talking about the business, and learning how I can help other people. Um, Beyond that, the strategic partnerships. One of the local professional sports teams, we print the shirts that they throw into the stands, during halftime to get the crowd out of their seats. And my cousin calls me. She says, I went to the game. My son caught one of the shirts. Can you reprint it in his size? And I thought, man, we should do that for everybody. So about a year and a half ago, I called up the president of the team. We sat down in a meeting and I said, hey, here's what I want to do. And he was on board. So what we did was now every shirt that gets thrown into the stands has a sticker that says, if you caught the wrong size, bring it to Big Frog and we will swap it out for free. And now during the season, 5 to 7 people a week come into the store just to swap it out. And we're able to use that DTG process where we can show them in person, and if it's a kid there, hey, do you want to push the button, and really get them involved. And we find that gets people thinking about their future t-shirt needs.
Great, great. I love the energy. This is the way the customers treated. This is high standards. Yes. By the way, how do you actually track and monitor maybe your customer retention? How the customers are returning to you?
That is a wonderful thing about the franchise group. They they keep all that, the systems of the in place to show me exactly what my business looks like. I don't have to track that at all, and I get a nice little report to pull from.
Great. So you have this standardized systems, this point of sale systems, which you're using to navigate through it. Okay.
Yes, yes, and when you look at, I mean, as soon as you're a business owner, everybody who has anything to sell is going to be reaching out, right? You're gonna get it, at the Chamber of Commerce, you're gonna get it on LinkedIn, you're gonna get random emails and phone calls all day, every day. Um, and one of the things I find really helpful about a franchise is making them the bad guy, and they said we could do this. So so say somebody calls as a credit card processor, I can say, that decision is made for me. I don't have any leeway on that. And then that gets me off the phone really quickly. When it comes to LinkedIn pitches, aside from, podcasts and other things that excite me, um, I have a very strict policy that's buy me a drink before you invite me to bed.
Oh,
I have a local business. You know where to find me. I am at the meetings. I'm out networking in the community. Come and get to know me before you give me a blind pitch on LinkedIn.
yes, yes. The actual this human touch is should be there. It's like
Absolutely.
building relations. Yeah. And in terms of the decisions and the operations, could you right now remember is something that some decision, some investment, the process or the pricing change that make complete sense at the time and still didn't work on the way you expected? So the expectations versus the reality.
Oh man, the only example that comes to my mind is the complete opposite. So to give you an example, there was a nearby franchise owner, and very, very, very intelligent guy, and he looked at the what do you call it, the pricing structure given by the franchise group, and he thought he had a better idea. Said, well, if the shirts cost me $3 a piece and the prints cost me 50 cents a piece, I could sell them for $5, and still make a profit. But what the franchise group was thinking about that maybe he wasn't, was that he was also paying $5,000 a month in rent. He was also paying $15,000 to $20,000 a month on payroll, and the difference between gross profit and net profit is the difference between charging $20 for a shirt and charging $5 for a shirt. And it was a very expensive um, difference of opinion.
Yes, the hypothesis testing went to show the reality.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And we'll get people who come in and they'll say, "Hey, what if I bring my own shirt?" You know, because they say, "Hey, I can buy this blank shirt for $3, and you guys are charging $22.99 for a basic shirt with a one-sided print, quantity of one. Obviously, we have bulk discounts from there. Um, so I should be able to get a whole lot off." And it's like, well, we take the price of the shirt off, but my biggest cost is not the shirt; it's the labor. And it's less the t-shirt and more the custom side of it, you know, the fact that you have a graphic artist creating something from your idea. That's my cost driver, so that's your price driver. So I would say, to bring it full circle, it would be important to lean into your franchise's pricing structure because they necessarily know more than we do.
For sure, for sure. And do you have maybe some information or data that you are missing to make a better decision from your franchise?
uh the one metric that I used to love following in my corporate career was sales conversion ratio, right? The number of sales that happened as a ratio of people who walk into the store. And just because, what gets measured gets managed, it would be interesting to see um, how that ratio could be managed. Um, Obviously, in most cases, people are going to come in at least twice. Well, once to place the order and once to pick it up when it's done. So we wouldn't be looking for 100%, but how can we bring it closer to 50? You know, Now the infrastructure behind that is having a motion detector at the doorway, and then the software built in to monitor that. Um, but that would be my pipe dream. If I could pick any additional metric to monitor, that would be it.
Great. Yes, this is the great technology when you can put this all these edge devices where which can detect the actual buyers and what are their dwell time in specific section and how they are moving through the areas. So you can optimize also the all your stock on there.
Absolutely.
Okay. And if you're making the decision from the scratch, uh, what you what you maybe do differently, uh, not just to focus on the outcome, but on the process. So mm,
I if it were to do over again, I may have looked a little longer into acquiring an established store as opposed to starting a new one from scratch. Um, I go back and forth on that because on the one hand, I think it's important to go from 0 to 1, as an entrepreneur to build it up. Um, because we mentioned callous or chronic. The important thing about having those calluses of having been through it, when things happen that would stress you out, and you are talking about a multi-thousand-dollar, order that potentially gets scrapped, or you have a production partner who misplaced several $1,000s worth of product. Um, I think if you just walk in from a corporate job and then all of a sudden it's like, here are thousands of dollars of your money, right? It's not the company's money anymore, it's yours. Um, I think having those calluses really prepares you. Now, that said, if I could have been cash flow positive in year one, maybe I could have, assuaged some of those concerns with those extra dollars.
yes, it could be a great success the first year and positive cash flow. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, what you say your first numbers to check when you walk in to the office every morning?
Yeah, so I I do those last thing at night, and it helps me sleep. I don't I don't have to worry about it, but there is a dashboard on our software for total payments taken for the day. And before the last employee leaves for the day, they snap a picture of it and they text it to me. And they know what our break even number is for the day, and so they're gonna know whether they're sending me good news or bad news. You know, um, but much like the coaching calls for an owner are good because the accountability keeps us productive. I think knowing that the employees have to send me that number at the end of the day, uh, no, it has. It's been part of our success story and how much we grew last year.
Have you had some the days where these numbers are not actually what you are you
Oh yeah.
expecting,
Yeah.
yes, and your sleep wasn't went very well.
Yeah, yeah, and there's gonna be good days and bad days, and there could be times where, for example, there've been times where, um, my team has sent me a picture of a number that is 5x the break-even point for the day, right? So really, really solid day, and then the next day, it's 50%. Am I gonna get upset about that 50%, or am I gonna keep my eye on it and say, "Okay, We had an amazing day, we had a terrible day, we're still ahead, but let's make sure tomorrow is awesome, right? Let's make sure the average is up. Um, so yeah, there are differing levels of concern based on instances and trends. um, but the snapshots are just pieces of a larger trend.
And do you have maybe from your systems, from your franchise group, the information on the demand forecasting, so you can be more prepared for some peak seasons and so on?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, 8 years in, we kinda learned what T-shirt season looks like? January is gonna be the slowest month of the year. In North Texas, it gets, cold for us. It may get below freezing for 3 or 4 days. Um, and so people aren't really thinking about T-shirts, whereas, back to school time, summertime, um, certainly in the fall, a lot of businesses are getting through their budgets. Um, I would say from March until early November, we're on a growing trend, and then from mid-November until mid-February, it's slow.
Interesting. Yeah, each business have its own seasonality, and it's
Sure.
interesting how it's navigated. And how are you prepared for maybe some corporate group orders where you have some maybe in thousand or in hundreds of items?
Absolutely. So through my franchise group, uh, we have um, we have facilities to go through as far as bulk orders go. So if I get an 8,000, there's some major corporate headquarters in the area. I've printed for Toyota corporate. I've printed for the United States Marine Corps. Some bigger organizations. Um, if it is too big to handle inside my store or it's not economically feasible, then I would outsource that either to the franchise groups, facilities, or through some strategic partnerships we've made over the years.
Hmm, interesting. Uh, Metrics that surprised you the most when you actually started to run the business. Yes. What would you name it?
That's a good one. That's a good one. Coming from the corporate world, uh, we had 15 metrics to go by. And so what surprised me was, yeah, I could break it down to 15 metrics if I wanted to, but I also have the ability to say, okay, my one metric is profit and loss. I'm going to break that down into get the customers, keep the customers, don't waste money, right? um, and I mean, anything that I monitor is going to be in service of those three metrics. And obviously we could get into sub metrics and things like that. Scrap versus payroll versus, different ways of not wasting money. And yeah, I would say not necessarily the hard metrics, but the intangibles. The biggest shock to me in managing this business was the difference between leading sales teams in a corporate environment versus leading artists in a small business environment. So if I'm leading sales teams, they're typically very dominant personalities, sometimes a little toxic, and as a sales leader, we have to say, okay, you know what? Have your attitude, go make me some money, right? Like we have to be humble and make sure that we're not taking things personally, you
Hmm.
know. Whereas when you're leading a team of artists, you really have to police the culture, right? You really have to make sure there is no toxicity, and so I've had issues in the past where we've had pretty high levels of employee turnover, and come to find out there was some toxicity. We got rid of that toxicity. Um, As a result, because of the framing from the person who left, it looked like I was the problem. And so I had to do some damage control and say, okay, you know, whatever you need from me, you're going to get it. And then I spent the next couple of months proving that that was true. And from there, we never looked back. We've made sure uh, to create an environment that's welcoming, that's peaceful, that is a little more collective, versus and I'm sure if you've worked on a sales team before, everybody thinks they're the best, everybody wants to win. It's like, okay, guys, we want to win by $1. We want all of our teammates, all of our friends to do really well, but we all want to be the best, and finding that balance and leading to that has been kind of the biggest shock in my business versus my previous career.
And while saying that, for now, as the years passed, you have this written and injected in your culture, right? So you're like treating and recruiting the new employees based on this internal mantra. So to first things first, we need to have this balance and perform, and from the other side you need to be like have a great team, have a common ground, have this peace in your mind, so no toxic environment at all, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. The resume gets you the interview. In my line of work, um, your ability to connect with people and your commitment to the group, to being part of something bigger, is what I look for. And I relate it to, I don't know if you remember, like in high school, if there was a theater production, all of the choir kids got the lead roles in theater productions. And that's because it's easier to teach a singer to act than it is to teach an actor to sing,
Yeah,
you know? And when I'm interviewing artists, I'm looking for personable, genuinely happy people, who enjoy connecting with other people, because I can teach that person art, but I cannot teach a pure angsty, angry artist how to like people.
exactly. Yes, yes, this hard skills are teachable, but not this the internal yeah, guidance,
Yes.
right? Okay. And what would be the one thing about running a franchise that nobody told you?
I mean, the big one that, and I don't remember how much trouble I had with it in the beginning, I'm sure I had a bit, um, is just trust the system, if you've done your due diligence and, the owner satisfaction is there and, the financials work out, there's a reason for that, and the reason is the system in place. And so trust it. Don't go in trying to reinvent the wheel, which is kind of my natural setting, right? Like, maybe I listened to too much punk rock in the 90s, but I tend to think there's nothing more American than raising a question or middle finger to authority, right? But if you're going to get a franchise, trust the system until you understand why it is the way it is.
Do you think that running the business within the system is more efficient, maybe, or more satisfying for you individually,
Yeah.
as being out of the system, so be as a freestyle operator?
Yeah, no, I do. I do. And that could be a personality thing. Um, so the shirt that I'm wearing right now, I have 12 of them. Exact same color, exact same print. Everything about it is the exact same one. So when I wake up in the morning, I don't think, what am I going to wear today? Right? I grab my shirt, and my wife will tell you I have a row of black shirts on the hangers, and then I have a stack of gray shirts on the shelf, and the only difference is what time of day is it, right? Um, and what I find that does is it kind of frees me up for higher level thought. And there are going to be, when especially if you have employees, right? There are going to be times where you have to be 100% available, no decision fatigue, no, no other stress that you could have outsourced to a system, but instead you choose to undertake that yourself. Um, the less you have to worry about as a default, the more dynamically you can think when problems arise.
Yes, totally makes sense. And if you can give one piece of advice for everyone who wants to step into their first franchise, so something concrete.
The question I would ask every single franchisor is, how many of your corporate employees have gone on to become franchisees? How many people start working in the mailroom, in the front office of the corporate franchise headquarters and say, "This is a really good deal. I want one of these." And I think that would be the single best metric in choosing a franchise.
Okay, Christopher, it was great to have you. Love your energy. This is something that I expected from this episode, so it was very practical and very operational. Loved it, and if you want to say something at the end, go for it.
Um, no, best of luck to you all. If you're interested in starting a franchise and have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Vlad, I guess my contact info will be in the episode.
Yes,
And thank you all for your time.
great, and of course visit Big Frog in Frisco, Texas. Yes, this is where you find Christopher. Okay.
Absolutely.
Uh,